Are you truly stepping into the role of leader in your own life the way you know you're meant to? What shifts would unlock your full potential? It's time to explore those answers with the host of Sacred Leadership, intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander.
Welcome to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network. Today, we are getting close to the middle of the year. And as I've said before, I think that checking in at regular intervals as we're moving through our goals and objectives is important. So today, what we're going to be talking about is being at the halfway point of the year and the things that I personally felt like I needed to say out loud to figure out what they mean. So today is, of course, a solo episode, but I'm treating it as an interview with myself because some conversations are just too honest to have with someone else in the room. Today, I'm going to open up about a couple of fasts that I actually did over the last few weeks, one being a 50-hour fast and the other one being a 46-hour one, and what each one was really asking me to release. And what ended up coming up was a professional advancement that was certainly thrilling in its own right, but equally terrifying at the same time, and the fear of failure that came right alongside with it. The stories that got loud that week were things like quit while you're ahead, don't take this step forward, who do you think you are? Everyone will think, enter, whatever. What it means to teach leadership. Do the work, hold the faith, and still feeling fear hitting you so hard is one of the things that I was grappling with. The pattern of wanting to run and the quiet thought that interrupted it. Maybe you're supposed to just sit with it. The difference between pushing through something and being in it. The difference that particular morning that I was working through this, the message I almost dismissed ended up actually helping me to find my way through it. Today is not an episode that is anything other than showing what this looks like in real time, what talking about it and practicing it, and more importantly, integrating it is really what this journey is about. So, that particular morning, before anything had happened, I'd gotten a message. I had opened up my journal and I was writing some things through. And I took a moment, and as I was sitting there, there was this thought that these days I like to say, I was reminded that sometimes we don't need to push, sometimes we just need to relax. And the body knows exactly what it needs to do. And I found that the fasting that I was doing was highlighting this particular message over and over and over again. And if you've been here with me for a while, you know that these are episodes where I can be very open and honest and intimate about the things that come up as I go through this journey. So today, someone asked me, how are you really? And my answer today was, I'm actually doing super great. But if you asked me this question a week ago, I don't even know that I would have been able to like string a full sentence together. I I'm usually thinking about an episode and what it is that I want to talk about. And it was funny because the day that I was preparing for this particular show, I was it was like all the content was just given to me in that moment. It was one of these days where I went to the office and I just felt so raw. Every time I opened my mouth, I felt like I was going to cry. I could feel like tears were like literally pricking at my eyes all day. There was a brick that was so heavy, with the only word that comes to mind when I think about what that feels like even now is just a brick. And I couldn't do anything to move it. And like I said, what I wanted to do more than anything else was to not be there, was to find a hole, go crawl into it, and cry myself to sleep kind of thing. And if anything, what I had to be able to do was to like figure out how I was going to manage to work myself through this day and get to the end of it. And so when I think about what does the midpoint of this year feel like in my body? So if I take a step back and I think about the beginning of this year. And the beginning of the year is always one of those things where it's like you're so excited. It's like a fresh slate. It's, you've got all these hopes and dreams and ambitions and plans. And frankly, I can't even believe that we're at the halfway part of this year and there's still, it feels like, oh my gosh, there's only halfway more to go. What have I done? Um, and so when I take a step back and I look at it through a different lens instead of what have I done, I'm looking at it more through the lens of what have I learned? What have I experienced? And I hope that you can see and understand the very subtle difference between what have I done and what have I experienced. And I think that if I look at how I would answer that question right now, I've experienced so much. And most of it is in those really, really quiet, what seemingly appear to be insignificant moments. And probably the most valuable experience that I've had so far this year is really this integration piece that I talk about between the spiritual, the practical, and how we show up with both of those in some kind of dance. I'm not going to call it balance because sometimes it's not, sometimes it's one more than the other, but the integration and knowing when to be in one space or the other. And that is what it looks like. So now when I look at it from the perspective of what does it feel like in my body, that's the other thing that is far more present in my experience is I'm using my body for almost everything. And I'm not talking in the sense of like walking and running and doing yoga and, lifting weights and that sort of thing. I'm talking about as a somatic practice, one that is like a compass, one that I pay attention to now, like on a daily basis. And I mean all the teeny tiny little things that before I would absolutely bat away and disregard. And now I just pay attention to. And I find myself speaking in a way that's like, I'll say things to people. I find myself speaking in a way that's far more intuitive. And what I mean when I say that is I'll be in a conversation with someone and I'll say, I feel like I'm being reminded to tell you this, or I'm being reminded of this thing, or I'm not sure why, but I'm feeling guided that I need to say this or that we should do that. And so it's almost like this year has opened up this part of my experience in just another level, a deeper level, a more intimate level where it's like I can't even unplug, even if I wanted to. So it's like once you see, you can't unsee type of scenario. And it's beautiful. I'm so grateful for it. There is literally what feels like magic and miracles that are happening all around me. But first, I had to go through this day where there was like this brick that was sitting in my chest, and I didn't know what to do with it, how to move it, if I was even supposed to. I didn't even know what to do with it. Have you ever had one of those days where you just feel so beyond emotional, you don't even feel like you can be coherent at any particular moment in time? That is what this day felt like. And like I said, I didn't know what to do with it. Um, and what led up to it is I was having a conversation with somebody. And this is what I mean when I say synchronicities. I was having a conversation with somebody one day, and they were talking about a spiritual fast. And I was like, okay, I got to pay attention because this is literally the third person who has said to me this year talking about a spiritual fast. And so I said, you know what? This sounds great. I'm going to do it. And off I went. Now, I admit I did not prepare well for the first one. And like a lot of things, I just dive in and worry about what happens later. Not all, well, some things, not all things, but some things. I just jumped right in. And my original target was I'm going to fast for 72 hours. And all the reading out there says, hey, you should maybe start with 1 day or maybe do intermittent fasting. And I was like, no. And this is that divine masculine part of me that was like, no, like fasting for a day is no problem. I can do that with my eyes closed. I really want to challenge myself and muscle through it. So I set this target of let's do a 3 day spiritual fast, ill prepared. And for day one was pretty easy. Didn't I felt a couple of hunger pangs, but nothing that I couldn't get through. Day two was definitely harder. And felt like my stomach, no matter what, would not stop talking to me all day. It was just like growling and growling. I just like, I was like, my mouth was salivating, just dying for food. And I was sitting exactly in this spot, really deliberating. Oh, should I end the fast? Should I stick with it? Should I end it? Should I stick with it? And what was I doing it for? I knew exactly what I was doing it for. I'd actually set the intention, and the intention was clarity, because I could feel this edge in my life, this edge, this underneath everything. It was like there was this little sliver of anger. I could feel it. I knew it was there, but I didn't know why it was there. And so the intention that I set was very, very simple. It was show me what this is about. Help me understand what this edge, what this anger is about, and ultimately how to release it. So as I'm sitting here at like 48 hours of into this fast, I had already decided at this point that I was breaking it, but just before I'd made that decision, the epiphany came. And as I was sitting there, and it was so crazy because it was like almost like just this, it was like one idea and then another, and it was just like this whole connect the dots thing. It started with an idea, and then I was like understanding, and then it went to another part of that, and it was understanding. And what I realized was that there was this version, this part of me, this story that I was holding on to. So even though this piece of me was well in the rear view, there were still parts of me that were energetically beaming out to the universe that I had not let them go. And it was being fully reflected to me in my day-to-day experience, and I didn't even see it. If you guys had seen me that day, I was like, holy shit. I can't even believe that this was like right in my face this whole time. And I didn't see, this is what you can't see until you're ready to see. And so this idea came to me, and then I made decisions in that moment where I was like, well, geez, that's not the message I'm trying to send to the universe. And so quickly got into divine masculine mode, right? So the divine feminine was I was being in it. I was waiting for the information to come. The information came, and as soon as it came, I didn't even hesitate with what I wanted to do because I knew the direction that I wanted to take my life in, and I could finally see all of the ways that I was completely stuck because I was holding on to these pieces that I was, for whatever reason, completely blind to. And so I felt so much relief. I felt lighter. And the other interesting thing that happened in this first spiritual fast was that as soon as I'd made the decision that I was going to do this fast, there was something in my countenance that had changed. Things just didn't bother me anymore. They didn't ruffle my feathers. Things that would normally upset me, or I'd get really agitated with people, I would just be like, you know, okay. And that doesn't mean that I didn't care. It just means that edge that I was talking about had now just, it had disappeared. It was no longer part of this experience. So this, in my world, could have easily become very addictive because after this first fast, I was like, I want more. I want more of that. Where do I sign up to get more of that kind of clarity? Because there are all kinds of things in my life that I would love clarity on. So I had already made the decision as soon as I broke my first fast and had a day of food, I'm going to do this again. And I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to do what's called an intercession. I'm going to fast for someone else to have clarity, to have wisdom, to have guidance, like whatever the case may be. And so that week, I prepped and I planned and I thought I'm going to hydrate really good. I'm going to eat really clean, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm really, really ready for this second fast. And I love intentions because, again, leading right up to this second fast, as soon as I'd made the decision, and it's funny how these things work in the land of spirituality because they're not linear. And that's the tricky part that people sometimes have a tough time wrapping their head around, is that we think that 1 + 1 = 2. And with this first spiritual fast, that's actually what I was expecting. I was expecting that I was going to get this thing that was going to make all kinds of logical sense to me, and then I would be free to move on. But the thing that was actually holding me back was so buried, yet in my face. And as soon as I consciously was aware and consciously let go of it, it's like it opened up so many other opportunities that just didn't even make any sense in my logical mind. So, as I'm preparing, before I share with you this second fast, we are going to go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, I will share with you more about this second fast and subsequently what happened. We will be right back.
Leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or world leaders. It's something each of us is called to embody in our own lives. But how do you awaken that inner leader with clarity and confidence? On Sacred Leadership with intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander, you'll discover powerful tools and spiritual insights to align your words, actions, and outcomes. Tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific, right here on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Sacred Leadership with Sherisse Alexander. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Sherisse@pavitraleadership.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network, where today I am talking about getting out of my own way. This is meant to be a midpoint reflection and possibly confession as we are almost halfway through this year. In the first segment, I was sharing a decision that I had made to engage in not one, but two spiritual fasts. And right now, I feel like I'm glossing over a little bit what the result, like what was it that I actually had to let go of? What did I learn? What surfaced in that first fast that I really needed to let go of? And so I'll be honest, there were these energetic ties to an old life, an old me, like specifically when I was married. And my ex-husband and I have a very amicable relationship, and we were very intentional about that. And we did that because we wanted our kids to be able to still have the experience of all the amazing parts of what our family was, even though we weren't in a romantic relationship. What I couldn't see was that there were ways that I was showing up that could be very energetically confusing for the universe. Forget Mike. This was not, or sorry, my ex. This was not about him. This was about energetically what I was literally beaming out. And what I mean when I say that, it's like, things like still having my married name being like my legal married name as an example. That is one thing. And for the longest time, I was just like, oh, I'm doing this because I want my kids to feel like this sense of unity. But then I was like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Like, that doesn't change who I am. And then I was looking at it from the perspective of, and I'm talking very much about spirituality and energy here, because I do believe that words and weight have like they have matter. They're creative. And so when I was thinking about, am I still Sherisse Hume or Sherisse Alexander Hume? And the truth is I'm not. I'm not at all. The person that I was when that particular connection ended many years back is, I'm nowhere near the same person that I am today. So this is what I mean when I say I was holding on to this thing that I was just like, oh, I'm, hanging on to it because, I want my kids to feel like, yay, Humes. But in the meantime and in between time, literally holding my own self back from this life that I can see, I can visualize, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can touch it. It's like literally right there. And I'm literally letting this thing hold me back from going in the direction that I want. So that is what surfaced. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, okay. Soon as let me get myself in gear and let's go ahead and like switch all of this up. So I'm sending a very, very different message energetically. So that was the first thing. There were other things, but that was a major, major thing. And once that kind of rose to the surface as something that I needed to address, I didn't even hesitate. And the great news about that is I've already taken the time over the years to process mentally and emotionally and energetically and spiritually, like that letting go piece, right? That can often take so long. This is really like the last piece in all of that. And I'm so glad that it surfaced because now I can just deal with it and move on. Now, the second fast, what was different? Like, I was really excited after this first one. Boy, oh boy, I was not ready for the second fast. The second fast, things started to show themselves even before the fast actually officially began. Like the day before, I was just like, all these things were happening. So it was already rattling my emotional space. Like it was already putting me into a state of like emotional imbalance is the only way to put it. I was trying to say something about equilibrium. Like my equilibrium was completely off kilter going into this second fast. So, but I committed. So I went into it and I was very patient. And the only thing that came from that fast, like I fasted the second time for 46 hours. And the only thing that I can say that originally came from the fast before I ended it was an event that preceded it. And it was an event, and I knew that it was so. This was the other thing is I needed to really put myself in a place of like not getting too attached to what my whole purpose was, because I went into the fast with one purpose in mind, and it was clarity around one very specific thing. And it was work related. It was something work related that I was going into this fast about. But then something again, totally unrelated, shows itself in. I'm like, no, this is not what I wanted to talk about. That was literally my energy. Like, no, I didn't ask for this. This is not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted clarity on this thing. And what ended up happening from there, I tell you, I felt gutted that week. I will not lie. I was, even though there was this event that had come up and it didn't fully emotionally derail me. I remember thinking about it and being like, that's interesting. And then it popped up again. And I was like, oh, okay, this is definitely something that I think I'm supposed to address. But even then, there was no emotional destabilization. It was the subsequent days where I could feel myself getting pulled deeper and deeper into this, like, this brick in chest. And so the day that I was prepping for this particular episode was like the peak of that day where I was like, really emotional, and there were super positive things that were going on in my life, and I couldn't even muster the enthusiasm. Like people are like, oh, you should be so happy, you should be so excited. And I was just like, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm just thinking about the work and I'm really focused on the strategy. And and yes, that was true to a certain extent, but then there was all the other stuff that was coming up. So I did actually get what I was looking for from the fast, because it was like all this stuff related to work started surfacing because, I had this really positive thing come up at work that I should be joyous about and I should be celebrating. But inevitably, what ended up happening was like all of the emotional junk equally came with it. Not smart enough, don't know enough, not ready. Our people are going to take you seriously. How are you going to do it? Are people going to question you? Like just all the things, all imposter syndrome, full tilt imposter syndrome. And so I had this moment where I'm literally sitting in my office and feeling shame like you would not believe. Feeling shame, like, girl, you talk about this, but look at you now, sitting in your office wanting to cry. And I'm sitting right here. And the thought that popped into my head was like, okay, you don't actually need to do this. This is ego talking. Sherisse, you don't need to do this. You can pack your shit. You can run. Nobody needs to know. We don't even need to tell anybody. Like, you can quietly do it. Like, this is the full conversation going on in my head. And when I realized this conversation that I'm having in my head, I was like, "Oh wow, this is deep. This has not happened in quite some time." And that's where the shame came because it was like you talk to people all the time about, you know, confronting yourself and, being fearless and being honest and all of these things. And so in that moment, I was literally I couldn't even stand myself in that moment. Anything. And I remember like picking up the phone and calling people, like felt like almost I don't even know what it is to be a crack addict, but it felt like it because I was just like fiending for relief. Like somebody help me feel better. Because right now I don't feel good at all. I didn't feel good about anything at that moment. And the crazy part is I had all kinds of things going on in that day, in that week to feel so positive about, but I couldn't even muster it because the stories were so loud in my head. And then here I found myself sitting in a restaurant at the end of this crappy day, brick in chest, tears still right there, wanting to spill over. And I started writing about what the day felt like, how heavy it was in my chest, how much I wanted to run, how terrified I was. And what was I terrified of? Somebody asked me, like, what were you actually scared of? And it's, the easy answer, which is failure and publicly, right? Like really public. Some people might be like, well, you're on a podcast. Yeah, but the podcast reaches who it reaches. This was different. This felt like a spotlight moment. And the funny part is I'm like in my head, I'm like, well, you asked for it. Like you literally put this intention out there. You asked for it. So ask and you shall receive. I asked for the opportunity, lands in my hands and then I'm terrified of it. Who else does that happen to? Because now it's like, great. Now what am I going to do with it? And so as I was prepping for today's episode, um, I was sitting there in this restaurant and I'm writing all the things that I was feeling and how I wanted to run away and how I felt like an imposter and how I didn't know how I was going to do this and was I really ready and all of these things. And I don't have enough information and I need more info and, I need to analyze and this is the whole crescendo. But then the quiet message from the beginning of the day pierced through all of that. And the message was get out of your own way. And this feeling that I was sitting with that I almost felt like I had to muscle my way through, that I had to figure out, that I was trying to force away all these feelings. That was actually the answer, right? Like all of these stories that were coming up around all these fake stories, by the way, I've learned in the last week, they were all fake stories. But I just needed to like just be in that moment. And so even when I was like trying to call people and get a lifeline, someone to help me not feel like this, and the quiet thought that equally entered was, well, maybe you're just supposed to sit with it. Maybe you're supposed to feel all of these things because it's going to be a lot of responsibility. And yeah, and you're more ready than you think you are. Like this is now the new conversation. And to me, when the energy of like your intuition or your higher self or spirit, it's so much softer. It's not frenetic like I was showing you before, at least the spirit I talked to. It's so much softer, and it was so calm, and it was more like, maybe you were supposed to sit here and let all these feelings come up to the surface. So then now you can engage with it. Now you can challenge it. Now you can begin to tell yourself a different story. But number one, if the story is buried, then it's still there, just buried. It doesn't mean it's not having a party. And number two, you can't begin to tell yourself a new story and show up differently if it doesn't get the opportunity to actually surface. And so the last message that I was reminded of in that moment was your body knows exactly what you need to do. This is this is not a push, it's just a be kind of scenario. And even in that moment, when I had all of these feelings that were surfacing and coming up and all of this other kind of stuff, all I actually really needed to do in that moment was be. Let the stories come, let the feelings come, and then I would be able to take a step back and ask myself some very different questions. So, it was a lot, for these two fasts. Let me just say, I've decided to take a break from fasting for a minute. But before we go into what happened after the fast and how I moved through those stories and began to really challenge them, we are going to take our next break. And when we come back, we will talk about releasing those ideas and how I then began to really challenge the stories that were coming up. If you are enjoying this show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes or your platform of choice. That's Sacred Leadership with Sherisse. I would be super grateful, and this will assist in getting the information out to those that need it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be right back.
Leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or world leaders. It's something each of us is called to embody in our own lives. But how do you awaken that inner leader with clarity and confidence? On Sacred Leadership with intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander, you'll discover powerful tools and spiritual insights to align your words, actions, and outcomes. Tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific, right here on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is Sacred Leadership with Sherisse Alexander. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Sherisse@pavitraleadership.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network, where today I am sharing a really raw and vulnerable experience that I had and learning how to get out of my own way here at the midpoint of the year when we're maybe evaluating where we are, what we've done, how far we've made it, and where it's still left to do, and so on and so forth. And I got to tell you, what a zany mid-year it is, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. In the first and second segment, I was sharing some details around 2 fasts that I did and what I had learned to release or what came up as a choice in releasing. And the second fast was like, It was so much deeper. I don't regret it at all. I'll be honest, it was not pleasant. Like feeling like that was, I don't want to do it again. Let's put it like that. That's not true. I do want to do it again, but I just don't feel like I need to do it again at this point in time. But what came up in that second fast was like so much deeper. And this is that difference that I sometimes explain to people between knowing, like really being confident in knowing who you are and performing confidence and knowing who you are. And all that this second fast did was it literally scooped it right up and brought it here to the surface. Because one of the questions that I asked myself, and it wasn't really a question, it was really more of a statement of like, I don't lead like everyone else. And it was almost like I was judging myself within that. I know I don't lead like anyone else. I know that my beliefs are so different to many of my counterparts. And I think I was even struggling with that. And what I realized from the second fast was that if I was going to really step into this opportunity, I was going to have to let go of that. Because if you're going to lead courageously and bravely and authentically, we really got to be solid within self. And I mean really solid within self. So all the fast was showing me was all of this stuff that is not true, that was really deep seated within me of my own doubt, my own fear, my own judgment, and really about the way that I lead, because the way that I lead now allows me the freedom to do it behind a veil, so to speak. It allows me to um, operate in a way that doesn't put me, you know, front and center. And I've always been very comfortable being back here. This opportunity was asking me to do something very, very different. And those who know me very well know that every single time I'm asked to evolve, step up, be bigger, be more, I say things like, no, I'm not ready. I'm scared. I can't do it. No, I don't want to. All those kinds of things. And even that awareness, I think, was kind of the beginning of that turning point. I was talking to my coach and I said, well, wait a minute. I've been here before. I've absolutely been here. I have been in the place where I had this fake imposter syndrome, all these crap stories floating around in my head, this idea that I might fail at something, and then I did it anyways. And lo and behold, you find a new comfort level with it and you do it like you've been doing it forever. And I could recount many times in my life where I've been there and just did it anyways. And so this was that opportunity. It was just for me in this moment, it felt like really, really big stakes. And in a lot of ways, it is really, really big stakes. But I think that when I took a step back and I looked at it, it was really the universe nodding and saying, you're ready. Even if you don't feel like you're ready, you are. You have all the tools, you have all the resources. You don't have to know everything. And again, all these things that I say to other people, and this was part of the challenge, is I'm like, I talk about this stuff all the time. Like, why is it so hard to apply to myself right now? And that's what I was feeling in that moment. You have all the tools, you have all the resources. You do not need to know everything. You don't have to figure everything out. There's so much support around you, whether you see it or not. What the hell are you scared of? Is literally what I landed with. And so that is how I began to challenge the stories that were floating around and really, really derailing me. I began to, and this, I'll be really honest, I have no shame in this. I talk about working with coaches all the time. It was a real, like, it felt so foundational, but I began by like writing down, what am I good at? What am I good at? And, when I started writing the list, I mean, it's such a great list when you start writing it because I'm like, oh, yeah, I am good at that. It was such a simple exercise, but it was so effective because I was like, oh, yeah, I am really good at that. Oh, yeah, and I am really good at that too. And once I started uncovering, okay, so not only the hidden low vibe stories, but maybe the not so obvious to me high vibe things, then it was like one of these things where I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I am ready. Maybe I can do this. And I think that the most important thing that I came away from, and that's why this episode was so important, because this was real time. And that whole shame and blame thing that I was doing towards myself was mostly about saying to myself, like, almost like you should have this nailed, like this should be perfection. And even though I say often on this show that it's not perfect and it's never going to be perfect because it's in real time. The whole purpose behind this is to be able to show you exactly that it's a moment to moment thing, and I'm sharing it with you in real time, and that there's nothing to be judging or blaming myself about within this. So the beginning of really shifting that was starting to challenge the stories like, who do you think you are? And when I thought about, oh, who would say that? Who do you think you are? Well, lots of people, many people. But again, I've often lived my life in this way where I tune out outside noise. And I tune out outside noise, not in the way to bury my head in the sand, but really more from the perspective that it's exactly that, it's noise. And I genuinely believe that the people that know me best, that have my best interests at heart, um, they, what they're saying doesn't matter, is ultimately what it boils down to. So, how I challenged it, just to recap, was I just began to engage with it in a very, very different way, or not in a very different way, but in a very foundational way, which was again just writing down the things that I'm good at and writing them down like every day. So like, so some days there'd be two, some days there'd be five, some days there would be 10. But by the end of that exercise, I think maybe I had maybe 20 things on the list that I realized were actually really, really positive qualities for this role. And that's not to say, and then the other exercise that I actually engaged in wasn't necessarily an ego stroking exercise, but more one of these exercises where I wanted I wanted perspective. So I asked someone that I work with, I asked for a little bit of guidance, and I just said, what's one piece of advice that you would give me? And this is when I really got validated that I was actually on the right path. Um, is they said, do it the way you want to do it. Be unapologetically yourself, because the best leaders are the ones who are unapologetically themselves and just show up and tune out the outside noise. That doesn't mean, completely ignoring, roles and responsibilities and things like that. This just means in the essence of who you are. Just show up unapologetically in the essence of who you are, if you are happy with who that person is. And I am happy with who that person is. And as I was going through this exercise, like that first day when the brick was like so heavy in my chest and I was wanting to run and all this other kind of stuff, as I was like beginning to like just sit with it and have this awareness that maybe I was just supposed to sit with it. I was supposed to let these things surface, and I needed to let these things surface so that I could address them and let them go, because they weren't really seen still. There was just another layer sitting with them. And as soon as I could acknowledge that, the heaviness started to like ease. It wasn't as intense. Didn't feel like grief. It wasn't like, I certainly wasn't about to cry every 3 seconds. It had just really softened. The edges of it had really begun to soften. And over the course of the last few days, man, that fast was actually far more valuable even now as I'm reflecting on like what's happened over the last few days. I realized that what's happened is that I've become sharper, far more discerning, and far more sensitive. That's the word that I will use. Far more energetically sensitive, which tells me even now, and this is a new epiphany, this one is in real time right now. What that tells me is that these two bricks of bags or bags of bricks that were sitting in my body somatically, where they were there, energetic body, physical body, mental body, emotional body. They were sitting lodged in various pieces of these bodies that I'm talking about. And once I surfaced them and engaged with them and consciously chose to let go of them, is when the magic in my life began to happen. Not to say that there wasn't magic before. There's magic every single day. There's magic that's happening around us at every single moment in time. But now I could see it. Now I could see it like so clearly. There'd be conversations that I would have that would reinforce a point that I'd had a day before, or there'd be a reiteration the next day. And when those things happen now, like I really pay attention. Okay, once you might not pay attention to, or it might catch your attention, but twice, definitely paying attention twice. And so the hyper awareness is so much keener now. And I didn't even realize that I was like holding all of this stuff in. And this is how this journey is. You don't really know until you start to like actively, consciously choose to peel back the layers and really get intimate with yourself. That's when these things come up. And the more that we can shed, like, you got to think about this, folks, for a minute. I don't know how old some of you are, but let's just assume you're 35, 40 years old and you're going along, living your life, doing your thing, and you're picking up sludge and crud through everyday life that you're not even thinking about. It's just literally attaching onto you. That is a lot of buildup, a lot of energetic buildup. And once you start to like consciously shed it and let it go, it just begins to open up things that you can't even begin to. And like I said, I couldn't even see it because it's not linear. It wasn't like 1 + 1 = 2. It was like do one thing and a whole myriad of things opens up. And that's why I'm just beyond grateful for having this experience and being able to go through that. So, we are going to take our final break. And when we come back, we will talk about what's next. We'll be right back.
Leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or world leaders. It's something each of us is called to embody in our own lives. But how do you awaken that inner leader with clarity and confidence? On Sacred Leadership with intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander, you'll discover powerful tools and spiritual insights to align your words, actions, and outcomes. Tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific, right here on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Sacred Leadership with Sherisse Alexander. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Sherisse@pavitraleadership.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network, where today I am being very open and very vulnerable about getting out of my own way and my mid-year reflection and confession. And in the first and second segments, I talked a lot about a couple of spiritual fasts that I'd completed over the last little bit, and what surfaced and what needed to surface in order to free me to really, again, evolve and step into these versions of myself that I'm really trying to achieve. And Now that those fasts are over and the things that needed to surface have surfaced, and there's this newfound awareness and appreciation for really engaging with this, or yet again, another awareness and appreciation for this journey and the lessons that come and how to engage with it and so on and so forth. Now it's like, what's next? So, fast in the rear view, crud revealed to deal with. Now what? And the now what I think is this awareness or this commitment in terms of I don't need to show up like anyone else. And it sounds so cliche, but it doesn't mean that we don't sometimes still think that we need to conform and that we want to conform. At core, we all want to belong. We all want to be loved and accepted unconditionally as we are. And I am no different to any of you. But I was in meditation this last week, and I think what I was reminded of that really was just kind of put front and center is that the work that I do is so much bigger than me as an individual. It is so much more than myself as an individual. It's just like and I think that that's when we begin to understand that our when you begin to feel like you have found your purpose and what you are here for and what you're meant to do and what really lights you up. And that's where I am right now. And it was almost like the guidance was clearly saying to me, keep your goal right here and don't worry about the rest of it. Everything else is just noise because the goal, the objective, where I'm going, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve is so much grander, and it's not meant to come across in a righteous kind of way, but it's meant to be in a way that is keeping me very, very focused and very, very intentional. And even now, as I'm saying it to you, it reminds me of my days back when I was a mortgage broker. And I did not pay any attention to any of what my competition was doing. I didn't even care. When people would talk to me, I'm like, oh, sorry, I don't, oh, they have a better rate. Okay, wasn't paying attention. And the reason why I'm being reminded of it right now is because I was very myopic in how I served my clients. I was very much offering myself and saying I am the difference between myself and the competition, because at the end of the day an interest rate is an interest rate. It makes zero difference. Like, there are very few people who are going to make choices over like 0.05%, right? Very few. The choices that people make and who they work with, why they want to do something, is how people make them feel. And so that's all I ever focused on, was how was I making people feel when they interacted with me. So I feel like I'm being reminded of that now, because that is my gift. And that's what all of this actually taught me, is that the gift of who I am is how I genuinely try to make people feel, how I genuinely show up to the interaction wanting to help you, and not help you in, I know better, help you figure out what better is for you. And these conversations and interactions happen all the time. So that is my gift as a leader, is the fact that I show up in a way that is generally unapologetically myself, and being okay with the fact that sometimes I'm going to have a really human moment, and then it doesn't make it any less, if anything, it makes it more authentic. It makes it more real, is the fact that I was like having a full meltdown. And I don't know that anybody actually knew that I was having a meltdown, but I knew. I knew how I was feeling. But I think the ultimate point is that that's what actually makes it more authentic, more real, more human, and more relatable, is the fact that I'm sharing that there was this whole scenario that lasted quite a few days off the heels of a fast that had me all these really old stories that I thought I had dealt with and that I thought that I'd buried or that I thought I was over, that resurfaced. And that's what I want you to remember about this journey, is that don't be surprised when these things cycle around again. And you might even find yourself being annoyed where you're like, I thought I dealt with this. Wounds can be many, many layers deep. And I try to remind myself of that, is that wounds, stories can be many, many layers deep. So let's not be surprised when they resurface. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, take care of yourself.
Thank you for listening to the Sacred Leadership Show. Sherisse returns Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, continue taking small steps today to be a leader in your life for the collective.